Hey guys, this is Thomas over here from IncredibleHustle.com. And on this particular episode, what I want to do is I want to talk about if photography is a good side hustle to have. Now, before I get into that, if you're not already subscribed, I want to go ahead and invite you, hit that subscribe button on this channel. I'm all about helping you find a side hustle, make more money, and manage your money as well. And if you find this video helpful, would really appreciate the thumbs up. Let's go ahead and talk about photography because this is one that I think that so many people will look at and they will think to themselves, well, there's not really any point of having, of having photographers anymore or anything like that. Cell phones and all of these fancy cameras have done away with professional photographers unless you're looking at, like these big budget films or production. And what you will quickly find is that that is not even remotely the case at all. Now, it is true that there's been a lot of advancements when it comes to, like camera work, when it comes to like cell phones, and even just like regular point and shoot cameras. There's, point and shoot digital cameras. There's been a lot of advancements, if you will, that have made those cameras really good for amateurs and make, it really helps amateurs actually put out better work. But the key thing in that is that it's really good for amateurs because there's still a huge distinction between a picture that an amateur takes with a really good, camera like an iPhone or a Samsung camera or one of these point and shoot, digital DSLRs on automatic, and one that a professional photographer does. And after they do their magic and then they have it, run it through Photoshop or whatever video editing platform that they're using, you'll notice that there's still a big difference between the quality that the professional puts out and one that an amateur puts out. There's a reason why when people have like these special events that they're still hiring professionals, right? So if you're looking at a situation where it's a wedding, you're last time I checked, you're still gonna go out and you're still going to pay up to have a professional photographer come and shoot those photos. Or if it's a like even if it's a situation of like maybe you want to capture a special moment, like you want to capture an engagement or a baby shower or something where you need a professional because you know that there is a difference between the work that a professional does and the work that an amateur does, right? And even one example, one thing that people don't think about is when people think photographers, they immediately think, well, people. You only need a photographer to video people, and that is not necessarily the case. And by video people, I mean like videoing people for live events. That's not the case because you will have photographers that'll go in and they'll video even so for specific objects. So for example, like you are selling a house or selling a piece of property or whatever, and you go in and you have a professional photographer come in and make sure the light is on point. Make sure the picture's on point because to say a picture says 1,000 words, well, you want that picture to say 1,000 of the right words. Pull up Zillow, Realtor.com, or whatever the case may be, and just quickly start scanning through listings. You will quickly see the distinction between one that a professional does and one that an amateur does, because even if it's not just about the lighting and whatnot, like when you start going into photography and you start learning, you'll quickly realize that there's a lot about just the way a picture looks, like the way objects are placed, the way people are placed in positions that just makes the image look so much better. If you need more proof that photography is still a thing and is still in high demand, even if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you will see that the job outlook for photographers is at 17%, which is much higher than the average. So if you're still following me, that covers the Okay, photographers, they're still in demand. Is it a good side hustle? And the thing is that it actually is a pretty good side hustle because it's one of those things where you can set up and you can kind of do it and work on it in your own time. So the first thing you'll notice, pros and cons of, if you're looking at photography, is that there is a low barrier to entry. There can be some decent upfront investment in terms of the equipment that you'll need, but there is a low barrier to entry. And so, just to kind of run into what you might need, so you're probably looking at camera and camera equipment. So, this would be camera, lenses, possibly lights, and some other props or whatnot. Probably then going to be looking at photo editing software and possibly like an external hard drive, and then either that or subscription to like a cloud service such as like a Dropbox, or Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, whatever the case may be. You might need some other stuff like a website, depending on what kind of photography you want to do. You might even need some studio space. But the thing is like the studio space, you can kind of rent that as needed, and you can kind of then go out to people. So we've hired a lot of professional photographers to come take like family photos and whatnot at the park or wherever. And all of that, she just kind of shows up, she takes the pictures there. So she's not paying for any studio or any space. And I'll get to that particular photographer here in a second. So just kind of hang tight because there's an interesting and cool story that I think will hopefully be an encouragement for you about her at the end. And so, but in terms of what you'll actually need to get started, I estimate that most of your upfront costs will probably be invested. If you want to do like a minimum setup, will probably be invested in a camera and camera setup, or so probably like a camera and possibly lens and tripod. And you'll probably then would have to invest in like a photo editing software such as like Adobe Photoshop, and which FYI, there are some links in the descriptions below of some cameras, camera gear, and a course that you should definitely check out. I'll put that link descriptions below, which gets me to the next one, which is after you move past the camera, the photo editing gear, you'll probably will then want to invest in a course that will then help teach you what you need to know about really just taking good photos, and then also being able to edit those photos appropriately on whatever photo editing platform of your choosing, which FYI, Adobe Photoshop just kind of happens to be, if you want to say, I don't know if you want to say the de facto market leader, but does tend to be like the kind of like the standard. But there are other options, there are other cheaper options as well for photo editing software, especially if you're just looking at getting started. Now, those are, I said, low barrier to entry. I said some of the equipments that you'll need to get started, and that's pretty much what you need. The hardest part about this gig is learning the skills, which I actually think that's probably going to be the easier part of it, because there's courses out there. There's courses, education, YouTube videos, whatever the case may be, that's readily available, easily available actually, to be able to learn and master this. Then I'm looking at that the hardest part then will be the acquiring of the customers, and to a smaller extent managing those customers as well, because honestly, whenever you're dealing with customers, and especially dealing with potentially customers in very kind of like stressful moments, especially if you're doing like wedding photography, then you'll notice that there will be a lot of headaches associated with that. Now, as for how much you could expect to make, depending on how much you hustle through it, could expect easily anywhere from probably $1,000 to $2,000 a month just as a side hustle alone. But I think it's important to remember that This is all going to depend on how much time you want to put into it, because keep in mind that while there are plenty of people that do this on the side, there are also people who do this for a full-time living. So we already know that photography is something that can sustain a full-time income, which gets me back to the story of the photographer that we used to have. That now this photographer, she's done a couple of baby pictures for us, family pictures, Christmas pictures, or whatnot. I remember when we first started using her services a couple years ago, and she was starting out. She was a nurse, actually, working full time and doing the photography thing on the side. I don't even remember how my wife found her. I think it was through Facebook or something like that. Anyway, no, actually, it might have been Instagram. I think it might have been. It was probably Instagram, but either way, found her, started using her services, and she was good. She was reasonably priced, and so we kept using her services until fast forward, just found out probably about a year ago that she is actually no longer working as a nurse and is now working full time as a photographer. That's awesome, and that doesn't necessarily have to be your case if you're just wanting something to do on the side to earn a little extra money. But I do think that this could be a side hustle, potentially turning into a full time hustle later if you so wish to. Make sure to check out the course in the descriptions below. If you want to see it, you can go check out incrediblehustle.com/learn photography. You'll see it on the screen and the description, and it'll also be in the descriptions below. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to show me your appreciation with that thumbs up, and I will catch you very soon in that next video.